So my name's Regen. I'm based in Bournemouth. I'm 24 years old. I'm an entrepreneur, business owner. Being an entrepreneur, you're always watching other people on the internet. You're always looking into self-improvement, reading, all this type of thing. And hypnosis started to become, or hypnotherapy started to become something that I kept seeing people who I genuinely respected online bringing up. For me, it was more about optimizing myself than it was like I've got this really big issue and I've got this like major anxiety and I can't cope. Like it wasn't that I was like mentally struggling as such, but I felt like for me to kind of reach my goals in the fastest, easiest way possible, I had to invest in myself, like mentally. I really see the mental side of life as the most important, and I think that's what I needed some help with. I identified some things that I thought were holding me back, some quote unquote limiting beliefs. I guess that's what I wanted help with. I didn't really, I started to become quite self-aware of some things that I was doing and ways that I was feeling that were kind of, I think, not conducive to becoming a successful entrepreneur. And I wanted some help with that. Like I said, I'd seen people recommending this sort of thing, so I'm pretty open-minded. I just went for it.
No.
I came into it with the belief that it was going to work, because I think that's really important with anything, that you actually believe in it. So I mean, in terms of hesitations, I was pretty down to do it. I guess the only thing was like, is it going to be super out of my budget? And even then, I was like, I always want to invest in myself. Like I am my own biggest asset, and especially like my mind is my own biggest asset. So the price of investing in that is honestly priceless. And like I said, I'd heard it come up so many times that I was like, well, I'm going to try this, right? Like, what's the worst that's going to happen? Without going into too much detail, I came to like a little bit like, I guess uncertain would be the right word about like what I was doing. I just kind of started a new business over the last 6 months. It was something completely new to me. I'd kind of gone down a completely different path than what I expected for the last couple of years. And like mentally, that was taxing. There's a lot of uncertainty and maybe a lot of kind of stress and anxiety around that, a lot of pressure. And I just felt like throughout the weeks that we were working together, I would come out at the end of every session feeling energized. And I really felt like the thing that I brought to you, like, oh, Doug, I feel like this is holding me back. And like by the end of it, it felt like it was fixed. And that's no exaggeration. Like that's just how I felt. The way I feel now is just more certain of myself, like the future, that what I'm doing, and more kind of accepting of the fact that like, yeah, it's going to maybe take a little bit longer than I wanted it to. I need to just start enjoying it more, instead of just constantly like having this want constantly. Like I say, now I just feel much more certain, like I said, and just like relaxed, at ease, and very motivated to just keep pushing. More optimistic about the future for sure. I came into it knowing a little bit about what we were going to be doing. I guess what surprised me is kind of the things that came out, like, because the more me and you talked, you really allowed me to be kind of like, to really open up. Like I didn't feel like I had to hold anything back. And things that I maybe hadn't considered, or like reasons I hadn't considered before, were kind of coming out. And then obviously like the actual practice at the end of the call, I guess that surprised me, in fact, because of how much I enjoyed it and how I felt after, and the fact that that feeling didn't just like leave after the session. I mean, I'm pretty sure in every single call we had, were working on something different. It wasn't like the same thing that we started with and it's still there. And I'm like, oh, I'm just still experiencing this. Like I said, it felt like you had installed a new operating system into my mind at the end of every session. So I guess I was surprised about how quick, I guess, the difference was. In the practice that we did yesterday, I got to kind of visualize my older self, and it was pretty vivid. And I had a good sit down and conversation with him, and we had like, he gave me some really good advice, which it just literally came from. It almost, I feel like it's exactly what he would have said. It kind of came from my subconscious. I genuinely feel like I spoke to the older version of me, the 80-year-old man that I was imagining. So. Um, yeah, I think that was probably one of the highlights, just being able to kind of look at life from that perspective and like what would he actually be saying. And it's something that I've thought about before, constantly, but actually doing it, visualizing it, and being in that kind of meditative, relaxed state made it really vivid. Look, I can only speak for myself and the situation that I was in, but I think intrinsically we all know that, what's happening internally manifests like externally in our life. The biggest investment you can make is always in yourself. It's what's going to have the biggest ROI. So I would say that even if you get the smallest amount of value from this, like the effects long term of investing in yourself are going to be huge. And I really think that you should strongly consider it. And you've got literally nothing to lose. Like if you're in a place where you think you're like struggling with things, if you don't do anything, then nothing changes, right? So yeah, invest in yourself. It will always pay back, and I can vouch that Doug helped me. I felt like I said, like I could be really open with him. I could just kind of speak my mind where I hadn't really had that opportunity before. And it wasn't just a therapy session. There was actionable things that we did after that genuinely made a difference. So I can only speak for myself, but if you're anything like me, I think you'll get tremendous value.